Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome. My name is Emma. I'm the operations manager here at East City Bookshop, and it's wonderful to be with you all today. Thank you so much for being here in person and for tuning in online if that's how you're joining us today. First up, I have some housekeeping. So, number one, if you need a restroom at any point tonight, there's one upstairs. It's past our wall of greeting cards. Number two, if you're watching from home and experiencing any technical difficulties, please just let us know in the chat, or you can email us at ecommerce@eastcitybookshop.com, and we're monitoring that. Let us know. My colleague is monitoring the chat and the email if any help is necessary. Number three, we will have time for questions tonight, of course, if you're in person, and also if you are on Zoom. So make sure if you are on Zoom that you're putting those questions in the Q&A feature so that they don't get lost. You can leave any general enthusiasm, let us know where you're tuning in from in the chat, and just make sure any questions go in the Q&A feature. Again, my colleague is monitoring that and will ask your questions on your behalf. And finally, and most importantly, if you happen to need a second copy, third copy, whatever, or any of the backlist books that we have in stock, you can purchase them upstairs. They are not on the shelves. They are available for purchase up at the cash register. All right. When A Very Secret Society for Irregular Witches came out, several of us on staff here fought over who got to make it their staff pick. I unfortunately lost. But we are all winners tonight because we get to celebrate this other amazing book. A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping may be about loss and secrets, but it's also filled with found family and whimsy and coziness and everything that we've come to expect that makes a Sangu Mandanna book feel like the literary equivalent of a warm hug. So our authors tonight, Sangu Mandanna is the author of A Very Secret Society for Irregular Witches, Kiki Kalira Breaks a Kingdom, and several other novels about magic, monsters, and myths. She lives in Norwich, a city in the east of England, with her husband and 3 kids. And our conversation partner tonight, BK Borison, lives in Baltimore with her sweet husband, vivacious toddler, and giant dog. She started writing them in the margins of books when she was in middle school and hasn't stopped. So now please welcome our authors for this evening.
I was yes and still behind you. You take such good care of me. We've just met.
The aisle made me feel like a bride.
You should do intro music.
Yeah.
Noted. Next time I'm here.
You know, when I was a bride, when I got married, I ran down the aisle because I hated that everyone was staring at me. It was like, oh, this is your moment. No, I ran. I sprinted down the aisle, and I very nearly sprinted down this aisle. But yeah, no, yeah.
So how does that make you feel right now that everyone is looking at you?
A little bit of horror.
Okay, well, let me make it worse.
But also, I mean, it's great. Like, thank you all so much for coming. Genuinely can't believe this many people want to read this book. Or some of you might have already. So yeah, so incredible.
Well, let me just wax poetic for a second. When East City asked me if I wanted to do this event, did I or did I not scream at the top of my lungs? I sure did. The Very Regular Society of Witches, what is such a stunning book. It's everything I love about reading. It is when I read the first page and I was like, I was like, yes, like you just know immediately. It's one of those special books. I'm getting teary. I cry at every event now. It's one of those very special books that when you read it, it just pulls you in, and it's so tender and it's so special. And I feel so lucky to be here with you. And I feel so lucky that I'm going to go buy like 7 more copies of this book. Okay, so I have lots of questions for you. I'm keeping it mainly about craft and process because I know a lot of you haven't read the book yet. And I'm just going to heart eyes the whole time. So your first book, Very Secret Society of Irregular Riches, we met Mika. We meet Mika. Who do we meet in book 2?
We meet. Yeah, sorry, I'm just I'm still recovering from what you said. It was so sweet.
I can say it again.
I know. No, don't, because I'm already a little bit concerned about my eye makeup. Um, this is the problem. You put makeup on, and then you're like, no, tears are not. No, no, they're not permitted. Um, yeah. What was your question?
Who do we meet in this book? And how does it relate to the first in the series?
Yeah, so in this book we meet Sarah Swan, who is so the two books aren't connected. They are this is always hard to explain because and hard to describe, and I don't blame people for getting confused. I still get confused because they are both cozy, witchy, romantic fantasies, but they are not a sequel or a companion novels. They're set in completely different universes. They just happen to both be very similar cozy universes. Um, but they do have quite a lot in common. I often say that if you liked Irregular Witches, you'll probably like this one just because they both focus on found family, on protagonists who don't quite know who they are or how they fit in the world or how to make space for themselves in the world. Um, and Sarah is unlike Mika. Sarah's never questioned that she is loved. She's had the enormous advantage of being raised by somebody who has loved her completely and unconditionally. But what she's never had is a strong sense of who she is without magic. And if this isn't spoilery, it literally happens in the beginning of the book. She's incredibly powerful, and then she loses her magic, and suddenly she's facing a future without this thing that has for so long defined her, and she doesn't know what to do. She and sort of retreats into being extremely grumpy, extremely I wouldn't say she's self-pitying. It's more that she has no time for everyone's crap anymore. She's just tired. She's a lot, I think we can all relate.
I was
She
gonna
has no
say.
time for people. She's just she has reached sort of that end. You know, when you get to a point where you're just like, I'm tired now. I need a nap. She lives perpetually in that state of I need a nap. um but you know, as is often the case with characters like this, she is a softie underneath. She is enormously loving and welcoming. And that's sort of where the inn comes in. You know, the magical innkeeping part of the inn where a little bit spoilery, but I'll just sort of hint at it. It's a magical inn. It's not it has almost has a personality. It's very connected to her. And really, the book's about how she navigates both the in and a potential future with or without magic.
When you're creating characters,
Hmm.
do you find that it's a reflection of what you're feeling as a person, like a knot that
Yeah.
you're trying to unravel for yourself, or is it completely separate from you?
I think it's both, which is weird because how could it both be? But it's I don't think that my main like Mika's not a lot like me, Sarah's not a lot like me, but I think they both have something that I feel really connected to. In both cases, I think part of it is that feeling of feeling out of place, of not quite belonging in Mika's case, she is a witch, a woman of color. She doesn't know where she fits in. She's never really felt like she's enough for anybody, as she is. And in Sarah's case, she's sort of grown up with this idea that she is, again, a woman of color in a very white, posh old boys sort of world. I think, again, we know what sort of world that could be. Um, and she's sort of this she's a wild card, really, to them. They can't conceive of this possibility that there is this girl who is brown and not a man and somehow more powerful than most of them. and it's inconceivable to them. It's horrifying. And uh, and so in a lot of ways, I feel like I was connected to that. I mean, I do not claim to have or dream of having the kind of power that these characters have in terms of sort of magic and the agency they have in their world. But I think I connect a lot to that feeling of wanting to prove yourself, also weirdly resisting that feeling to want, like, feeling like I shouldn't have to prove myself. I'm very cross about the fact that you're expecting me to prove myself. I'm related to that a lot. And so I think there's a lot of it where I weave in things that I'm feeling at the time. And with this book in particular, with Magical Innkeeping, I was struggling a lot with. I've had depression for years, a resurgence of the depression, of that sense of you know that feeling where every now and then you stop and think, remember when I could like stand up without my back just going?
Yes.
Remember, yeah. Right. Remember when I could exist without, like wrenching a muscle by daring to just sit?
It's like a montage of like when you were young and
Yeah,
beautiful.
right. It's
And you
like,
could move without cracking.
I know. And you could just like exist without thinking, oh, if I sort of take a wrong step, like I'm not going to bore you with this story for long, but just as an example, I had the audacity earlier this year to not notice a step that high, and tore a ligament. It was hideous. The tearing of the ligament was so painful that I then fainted and hit my head and got a concussion. It was, yeah, again, it was, I'm fine. I'm here. I remain with us, but the point was that, I had this visceral thought while I was in the hospital later that this would not have happened to me 20 years ago. And I think a lot of that is in this book, not in the sense that, like, I don't really like do the whole, oh, I wish I wasn't aging kind of thing. Because I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad we're, like, I think each stage of our lives is incredible in different ways. But there are times when I think we all feel that very relatable longing almost for some version of ourselves that we think, rightly or wrongly, was somehow better. And there's a lot of that in this book. And it's, yeah, yeah.
I find sometimes when I'm starting, particularly when I'm first start a draft and I don't really know who the characters are yet, and I'm writing and I'm writing and I'm like, oh, maybe I should talk to my therapist about this.
Yeah.
There's a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Or my editor will be like, are you well?
Yeah.
And the answer is always no.
There were versions of this book, absolutely, where I was kind of like, I would write a chapter or two and it would be it would follow on quite, naturally from what came before, but it would be completely different from what the plan was for what came later. It was getting very dark and very angsty. And I would stop and go, yeah, this is like, I think I've been doing this long enough now that, yes, that there's a little warning bell in your head that goes, you're not okay.
You got to back the truck up.
Yes.
Beep, beep, beep.
Something needs to, yeah. And something needs to change, and not in this book, in you, in your life right now.
Fix yourself.
Yeah, go fix yourself.
And then write your cozy, whimsical witch book.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I said this recently, I think, online, but it's weird and incredibly hard to feel cozy when the world's not cozy. It is in fact so uncozy right now, for many reasons. I don't think I need to, go into that.
Shall we list each?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, here in Washington, D.C., of all places.
Yeah, I feel like they're in the walls.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm gonna get myself in trouble. Yeah, what?
That was actually my question, though. Your books, yeah, no, they're not. Not that they're in the walls. Your books are so cozy and whimsical. How do you sink into that feeling?
It's with difficulty. I mean, it's sometimes the superficial works. You know how that there was that thing. I mean, I don't know if it was a thing here, but in the UK there was for a little while there was a like this popular sort of idea that if you listened to happy music, you would feel happy. And sometimes it did work. Not, in a on a soul deep level, but on that just enough to get you through the day kind of thing. And I feel like that works sometimes with writing as well. It's if I can turn the fan on really high, like if it's summer, which is when I wrote a lot of this book. uh, Turn the fan on really high, get a hot drink, get a blanket, and sort of hoodwink myself into thinking that it's cold, there's something, romantic and windy and, rainy outside, maybe some snow. Um, I used I used to get YouTube videos of like
Oh yes, I'm
one of
familiar.
those 10-hour cozy ambience videos. That was me. I was just like have that on the on the TV in the background and somehow tricked myself into thinking that the vibe was cozy. And that would work on a superficial level, and it would be enough to get me into the space to then remind me that actually, there are parts of this book I love. There are parts of this book that are soft. And even though the world outside is not, um, I can lean into this for just a little while.
I think the world not being soft is the reason why we need more books that are soft.
Yeah.
And so what a gift, for books
Thank
like
you.
this.
But
It's important.
I do think that I don't think it's a coincidence that cozy books, cozy romances, cozy fantasies have become so popular um, since around COVID, since COVID. It's just between world politics, pandemics. I feel like we're all just looking to be comforted, just in a small way. Um, and, I'm forever proud and grateful to be a part of doing the comforting. Yeah.
Not gonna cry. What drew you to incorporating magic into your stories?
Something I've just loved always. Like it was never a question. It's just one of those things that I have I've written and published one contemporary short story in my entire life that hasn't had any magic at all. And I love reading it. I don't feel like I'm particularly good at writing it. I need just the fantastical um when I'm writing. Like I love a good contemporary romance, but for whatever reason, if I try and write one, suddenly there's an elf. Um, there is a fox that talks. There's, a zombie chicken. Um, magical things just happen. And I have learned not to fight it. There comes a point where you're just like, I'm leaning into this. I am going to write about magic. And yeah, so it doesn't matter what age group or subgenre of fantasy, there will be magic. That's sort of my unwritten contract with readers.
When you're creating the magic systems and the world building, do you set out with an idea of like, I want the rules to look like this, or do you sort of figure it out as you go and let the magic evolve that way?
I think there's a lot of figuring it out as I go. I like having some kind of idea, like even if it's just sort of like a vague, this is the feeling I'm going for. And then I like to do the figuring out as I'm writing. But funny story with this one, a lot of the world building, a lot of the magic system in Magical Innkeeping, um, was born out of the fact that I was trying really hard to make it as different from irregular witches as possible. Because that is the pitfall of writing two unrelated, cozy, romantic, witchy fantasies that are both contemporary, because the magic system has to be different, and yet everything else is the vibe is similar. So my starting point was not irregular witches, be different, but not too different. Because that's the other thing, as you know, in publishing, it's all be different enough, but also be the same. because that is what people want. And I get that. But it's a hard line to walk. And so with my world building, it tends to be a combination of having that voice in the back of my head saying which how similar or how different is this? And obviously also being mindful of other magic systems out there. I mean, that I don't think that there is such a thing as an original idea or thought anymore. I mean, humans have existed for a long time. We've all thought things, but it's all about how you interpret it and how you put your own stamp on it, and sort of being mindful of what's come before and not pretending that you've reinvented the wheel, because none of us have. We're all just kind of following in the footsteps. And so for me, it's putting some ideas down and then writing the story and then adapting them as we go along.
Do you find do you have a strong outline before you start, or do you just have a gut feeling, or does a book concept come to you like as a full-fledged concept, or are you writing to a scene, or do your characters come first?
I think it depends on the book, but a lot of the time, at least now, I do think my process has changed a lot after being published than was before I was published. I think one of the natures of being published is that you spend a bit less time on kind of, oh, here's this thing, I'm just going to run with it, and a bit more time on, will this sell? Is this what readers or my publisher or whoever's in charge at the moment wants?
Because I think we sort of have to.
Yes, we do. We have to.
Before we sell a book, we often have to the horrid synopsis of what happens in the book, and I don't know what's happening in this book.
Yeah, I have to make it up.
Yeah,
And that's
oftentimes.
the whole point is that we have to make it up.
I think my last book, we wrote the synopsis, sold the book. I was writing the book, and my editor was like, "This is not the same." I'm like, "It has never been the same, never will be the same."
Yeah, yeah. I think though that and often what that's called when you do that in publishing is that you're selling on spec, which means that you don't write the whole book. You sell the book based on a synopsis, like you said, and a couple of chapters maybe, which means that inevitably things will change and the final draft will not necessarily be close to or anything like the synopsis, but you still have to come up with it, which means that I think because of having been published, my process now when I'm writing a book is to have something there, even if I know that chances are a lot of it will change. I still need to have that. I wouldn't say it's a detailed outline, but it's more like I tend to know the beginning and the end and what the main character's overarching journey will be, and everything in the middle is sort of the fun part that works itself out as I'm writing.
I love how you said fun part.
I mean, it is. Like, the part where I don't actually know what's
Is
happening is fun. Yeah. It's the bits I know.
That's nice for you. In that vein, was there a knot in this book that you struggled to untangle? What was the most challenging part of writing this novel for you?
Luke, our I wouldn't say he's the male main character. He's the love interest, and he's a very sort of like top tier secondary character. He was very difficult because again, when you're writing books that are cozy, witchy, romantic fantasy, we can do a bingo like count for how many times I say that. When you're writing something that is so similar, there's also this, I can't have him be just like the last love interest. Like, who is he on his own? Because and he was hard. He was a hard one to untangle. 3 full drafts, I think, before I got a good handle on who he was and what was driving him. I think that was like Jamie in Irregular Witches came easily. He was there because I think because the whole family of Nowhere House was there in my head, they felt ready. And in the way they are, because they are fully baked when we meet them, they are a pre-existing family unit. and so he came easily, but Luke was a thorny one, a tricky one to untangle.
At any
I love him dearly, but yeah, he was a pain to write.
at any point were you sort of panicking, like, who is this guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what's happening right
Yeah.
now?
I mean, 100%. The first draft, I mean, I think first drafts are always just a bit, but with usually I get to the end of a first draft and I think the whole plot is terrible and needs to be changed. But I quite like the characters. This time, got to the end and thought, okay, some parts of the plot are okay. Him though, I mean, why does he feel so flat? So nothing. He was genuinely, I cannot begin to express how nothing he felt. Um, and I don't know why he was so difficult to untangle. But yeah, very much got to the end of that first draft and thought, I don't. I had to hand it in because you have to. You don't have a choice. We have to hand in our drafts. Um, and there was a part of me was just going like, this is just. And also a part of me that was thinking, I really hope my editor doesn't like him because I hate him now and I need to change him. And if she decides that for some reason there's something here that's redeeming, what am I supposed to do? Just be like, nope, sorry, gonna break your heart. He's going.
He's dead now.
He's dead now. There is a new Luke.
There's a-
There's Luke
Born in the
3.5.
ashes of old Luke.
Yeah. Yeah, by the end it was very much Luke 3.5. That is who you will meet in the pages of the book.
Don't even think about old Luke.
Yeah.
What was your favorite part about writing this book? What was the thing that came easiest to you?
The zombie chicken.
The zombie chicken.
He was just every moment with Ruru, the zombie chicken, brought me joy. It was just pure self-indulgent joy. There was no I mean, obviously when you read the book you will see that there is a plot reason he exists. I didn't plan that. It just happened and then I was like, huh, I like that. I'll keep it. And then I kept it and leaned really hard into it, and it made me so happy. It makes no sense. It has no it changes nothing about the overarching story, but sometimes you just want some joy, and that's what he brought me.
There's this there's a great, I've been talking to my 5-year-old all day, can't tell. There's this great interview with Nora Ephron where she talks about how in Sleepless in Seattle, there's this scene where one of the characters is describing her favorite movie and she's just sort of like sobbing at the table, and it goes on for a really long time. And there's no point for the plot to have this story, but she liked it. And so she kept it. And I think about that often when I'm drafting now. I like it, so I'm keeping
keep it. Yeah.
And so often I see in reviews and feedback sometimes with readers, I'd be like, this book could have easily been 50 pages shorter. Sure.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of stuff that I like, and it's my book.
I mean, it could have been 3. Well, yeah. And the way I see it is it could have been 300 pages shorter. I could have just not written it at all. So if I'm going to write it, I'm going to have fun with it somewhere along the way. Because like you said earlier, like the fun is hard to come by. It's sometimes, not always, but sometimes writing, it's chore. It's a slog. If anyone else writes, you will know it is a slog sometimes. And we take the fun when we can. And I think we're taught a lot of the time that if this doesn't have a purpose, don't use it. It must drive something forward. No, no,
No.
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 I'm digging my heels in on this
Zombie
one. No, it
chickens,
doesn't.
no.
Zombie chicken. No. Anytime anyone says this to me, I'm just gonna say zombie chicken.
I think
Nope.
I think I will too. I
Yeah.
think next time I get a note from my editor, I'm gonna be like, the zombie chicken
Zombie
thing. And she's gonna be, what?
What? Be like, no, look it up. The zombie chicken. No.
All right, I think we went through all my questions. You guys have questions? Let's open it up to questions from you fine folks who are all avoiding eye contact now.
There always has to be one brave. Oh,
Right there in the back.
Is there anything you think writing about witches in a magical world allows you to do that maybe writing a non-magical story wouldn't?
I'm going to repeat the question for our
Yeah.
friends online. Is there anything about writing witches that you believe allows you to do with your characters that otherwise you wouldn't? Did I do that right? Okay. Can I give you the microphone? You're doing such a good job of being eloquent. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
Anything that you think that you're allowed to do because it's magical that you wouldn't be able to do magical, but other than like clearly like zombie chicken.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, so I think for me, a lot of the appeal, other than the obvious, like you said, of writing a magical book with magical characters, is being able to sometimes bend bend the rules of space and time, but also kind of bend the rules of what makes sense. And I'm saying makes sense in sort of in air quotes because we can adapt things to make sense. Like a lot of the time, things that don't make sense it just make sense to somebody else. And what I love about writing magical things is that you can, for example, write about something ridiculous like a zombie chicken, but at the same time use that to speak to something deeper about a character's longing for a childhood pet or their secret softness underneath all of the grumpiness. And that's not to say that you can't use metaphors like that and analogies in a non-magical novel, because of course you can. But I think I find the fact that you can use magic to be that metaphor really appealing. I don't actually know how well that answered your question, but I hope it did.
Right over there.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you have any like kind of formative influences that made you first want to go down this like cozy fantasy niche, or even like books or media that you feel like really inspired you to go down this path.
Do you have any formative influences that inspired you to explore magic and fantasy and such?
Yes. Here's the tricky part. I do. Um, but half of them I can't or don't want to mention for various reasons, because the people who wrote them are not particularly nice people. They're not people I particularly want to talk about. One thing that does stick with me, that as far as I know, I can still talk about happily, is Howl's Moving Castle. Both the Studio Ghibli, is it Ghibli or Ghibli? Ghibli, Studio Ghibli version, and the book. Like the book, if you haven't read it, is actually even cozier than the movie, and they remain all, like both of them, but the book in particular remains an all-time favorite of just any genre I've ever read. But also is hugely like I read it for the first time years and years and years ago, and it was long before we were using the term cozy fantasy as a genre. It was I remember reading it and thinking, that you could actually write a book that was magical and fantastical, but it not be sort of high energy, high stakes, high stress. Um, like all three. I think cozy fantasy is really good at mixing high stakes and high energy with the softer bits. But the one thing cozy fantasy never is high stress, which is great right now. I mean, for most of us. So that's probably the biggest formative influence that I can still talk about.
Sure. Some virtual questions.
Did you want to build a world instead of having this book exist in the irregular witch book?
That is a
Do you want me
great.
to repeat it?
Yeah.
Why did you want to build a whole new world instead of having this book exist in the very regular Society of Witches universe?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And the main reason is that the idea I had for magical innkeeping required parents. And if you've read Irregular Witches, you will know that the sort of like a building block of the magic and the world building is that all the parents are dead. Um,
Did you just sit down and you're like, oh shit?
yeah, pretty much. That was me. I was like, how can I make this? I mean, because I knew from the start that I didn't want it to be a direct sequel. Um, I'm by no means against writing a sequel. I would love to write a sequel to either of these books at some point when the right idea comes to mind. But at the time, I knew this wasn't going to be a sequel. The fact that it might be in the same universe was a possibility I considered, and then the parents, it was an insurmountable issue. Um, and so it did, by the nature of the trap I'd made for myself, have to be a brand new world, with all the complications that comes with that. But I'm glad because there was a lot of things I got to do with the magic system in this world that I really enjoyed doing, and I wouldn't have been able to if I hadn't branched out into a whole new world.
In both of your books, there is such a strong and intergenerational aspect to the central families. Why is that important for you to include consistently?
Why is it important for you to in
Intergenerational.
intergenerational aspects of family? Why is that important for you to include in your books?
I think much like that's a really great question as well. Much like the sort of casual diversity of these books. It just reflects the world I live in. I grew up in India in an Indian family, which, like a lot of minority, well, I say minority here, not minority there, like a lot of minority cultures, we tend to have a lot of multi-generational families living in close quarters, sometimes in the same house, sometimes sort of close by. We tend to rely on on like extended family a lot. We tend to include in our what we call family people who aren't necessarily related to us, but like you can have like a million aunties and uncles, and half of them aren't related to you, but they still are family as far as everybody's concerned. And I've always wanted to write, like, it feels natural to me to write that kind of dynamic in which people of grandparent age, people of parent age, people of I say our, me once, people, people in their 20s, people in their, who are 30 and still kind of figuring themselves out, and then kids, including all of these different generations, is a reflective of my life. It's what I know, it's what I enjoy writing. And I think that diversity in age, generation, ethnicity, all of that, I think it just enriches the real and fictional worlds. Not to get too cringe and, soppy, but yeah, it's important to me. Yeah.
What's the book you've read this year that you love telling people about?
What's a book you've read this year that you've loved telling people about?
This is a little bit of an unfair one because it's not out yet. Um, but the first one that comes to mind, because I read it quite recently and I absolutely loved it, is The Isle in the Silver Sea by Tasha
Can you
Suri.
hear?
Uh,
Got her over there.
it's out in October. There we go. Thank you. Yeah, it's out October 21st. It's incredible. It's not, like, warning, it's not cozy. But at the same time, you know how T. Kingfisher's books can be really dark, but at the same time feel kind of cozy. This does as well. It has found family. It has these incredible queer relationships that are just normal and represented on the page. It has this really clever exploration of colonialism and the assimilation and white supremacy without feeling like it's about colonialism and white supremacy. It's about fairy tales and an entire island built on the magic of fairy tales. It's incredible. I can't say enough good things about it. Highly, highly recommend. But again, it's not out until October, so I feel bad recommending it right now.
Sorry, we made eye contact. One second. I haven't looked anywhere over here. Hold on one second. Anybody over here? Yes, right over there.
Big fan. I've been reading you since.
Thank you. Oh.
Because between Celestial Trilogy, the Kiki Kalira books, and these completely different age groups, completely different. Well, Celestial and Kiki Kalira are both mythology, but like, how do you do that? How do you switch between the different?
You do a lot of genre and age range switching. How do you manage that? That's something we talked about in the back. It's a good question.
Also,
How do you do it?
How do I do it? Also with difficulty. It's, I think in general, like we talked about this, funnily enough, backstage, like you said, it's hard trying to jump between two different books at any point. When it's different ages, weirdly, I think my actual writing process doesn't change all that much. It's fundamentally the same. It's about finding a main character I connect to in some way. With my kids' books, it's either because of mythology that takes me back to, you know, my childhood, or because they're neurodivergent and it's something I want to explore because I have ADHD, or in Kiki's case, it's because, you know, she has OCD and I have OCD. And so I find something I connect with, and then it sort of goes from there. And whether I'm weaving in magic, that a magic system that I'm making up, or mythology that I'm pulling from my childhood or somewhere else, it's sort of the same writing process. But what does change is the voice a lot of the time. And when you're switching back and forth, can sometimes get confused. I've tried really hard to kind of draw that line. A lot of the time, my books for younger readers tend to be first person, and my books for adult readers tend to be third person. And I kind of do that deliberately to give myself that space between the two. And also because a lot of the time when I switch, I end up going, oh, no, that's not the right book for this one. That's not the word you should be using in that book for 8-year-olds. Nope. And that happens a lot. So it's about giving myself lines, I think, things like a different perspective, point of view, a different, sometimes tense. When I switched between middle grade with Kiki and the Celestial Trilogy, which is YA, one was first person present, one was first person past. You just find ways within the actual writing to distinguish it for yourself.
My friend over there.
But no, you said writing was hard, and I feel like male characters in romance can be such a kind of an interesting space since it is like, at least I'm a but men with the manosphere and all these kind of weird icky right things, and maybe those more always existed, but they feel particularly loud right now. Has that made writing your male characters like that made it more difficult, more like fun, challenging?
Because men are trash. In real life, how has that impacted you writing men in fiction? That's it.
Yep.
Okay.
Hashtag not all men. Yeah, no, the simple answer is yes, it has absolutely affected the way I write male characters. I think I love reading all kinds of different romances, and I also love a lot of, like, you know, alpha male toxic fantasy-ish kind of things in fiction, to be clear. Um, and I do love that, but I feel as somebody writing cozy fantasy, I feel a lot of pressure to write very unproblematic men, like the very definition of man written by woman kind of thing, right? Very much that. And so with Luke, yes, sometimes I think as a writer who has in the past, like before I was published, when I was still, you know, writing things that were rejected for various reasons, I have written the more sort of quintessential alpha male character, and I find them easier to write just because there are tropes that you can easily rely on. There are real world examples you can easily pull from. And it's harder, I think, to write a love interest in cozy fantasy who brings comfort and reassurance. And I mean, obviously, you want to find him attractive and sexy and all those things. Great. But also find him comforting and loving and tender in a way that some men absolutely are, but aren't often given an opportunity to be. And I think that's where we get that idea of man written by woman. And so, yeah, I do feel a lot of, I do feel like you said, the discourse around men online has impacted the way I write things. I feel like you kind of want to go the other way. While the men are more trash in real life, you try and make them less trash in fiction. We need something, don't we? We need something to cling to.
In a way, isn't all romance a fantasy then?
Yeah, yeah, that's just kind of.
Because like, have you met men?
Have you met exactly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that way too. And I think sometimes when you write softer men, it can be hard to create. I don't know, think if this is the right word, but hard to create a stronger sense of tension.
Yes.
While keeping that character soft and vulnerable and gentle. For me, sometimes I love a soft man. All my characters somehow, some way wind up being a soft man. And I think for me, it's very much, I want that. I want more men to be that way. And so it just inevitably comes out. I remember in one of my books, I was writing an argument between the male and female character, and it was just like, my editor was like, he needs to be more mean. And I was like, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
So it's hard, I think, sometimes to create the tension in romance without relying on making the male character harder.
Yeah.
A harder edge. That's what I mean. Don't you laugh at me like that. I'm done now.
No, it's absolutely true though. It is I can't say it now. It's hard to
It's so hard.
It's so hard to write to incorporate that tension. I think the third act breakup is another aspect of that it has its place, absolutely. I think a lot of the time the reason it becomes such a well-used trope in romance and fantasy romance is because the man is often being, I'm trying to think of a PG word. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, is often being a jerk. And it doesn't work. Like if your character is not that person, it's not going to work to sort of force a breakup because of something. But that third act breakup is often a source of the tension, for example. It's not my favorite source of tension when I'm reading. It's often the moment where I'm like, no, this wasn't necessary. But yeah, just sort of like, I think you summed it up really well, including that tension when you have a softer, kinder love interest is hard.
Your cover art is gorgeous. Can you talk at all about the artists you've worked with and what input you've had on the design process?
Your cover art is gorgeous, and it is.
It is.
Can you talk a little bit about that process and your involvement?
I mean, it is incredible. The entire design team at Berkeley is extraordinary. The artist who did both the covers of Irregular Witches and Magical Innkeeping, I just forgot the title of my book there, just went, is called Lisa Perrin. I think I'm pronouncing her last name right. It's Perrin. So I think it's Perrin. And she's incredible. My input into the process was, here are some cozy things that I think would be cool on the cover. and they just went from there. And I would sort of see a draft, and I'm not going to lie, each time I saw a draft, I said, "This is amazing, no notes." Like there was nothing. Oh wait, and I did have one note. Once, I think, with with Irregular Witches, Mika was wearing something else on that broomstick, and I said, because we've got the yellow stars, her yellow dress, which she does wear in the book, would be a good thing. That was my one note.
That's a really good note.
Yeah, no, thank you. But yeah, I mean, I'm well aware that that's not my area of expertise, and so I like to just offer vibes and let them do the hard work.
Berkeley hates to hear from me. Let me tell you, I come prepared with like a 15-page PowerPoint. I was a creative director in my former life.
That makes sense.
So like I'm very visually driven. And so I get a very reluctant email like, hey,
It's
that
time
time's
again.
coming. See, they tried last time, they tried to get me. I was on the tail end of First Time Caller Tour, and they're like, don't know if you have any thoughts. Don't worry about it if you don't. And I was like, oh, do I?
I have thoughts. Yeah, I know.
Did you have a question? Yeah.
What is your way of being cozy, or what is your way of celebrating wins during the writing process or when the book comes out?
That's a really good question.
That's a really lovely question.
Thank you for asking that. I don't think I've ever been asked anything like that. When the world feels so heavy, how do you take care of yourself?
Do you want to go first? I've been talking a lot.
No, you go. This is your show.
um, not very well is the answer. That's what I learned, I think, when I had my year, well, my last, as I say, my year, it felt like a decade. My 2024 was just feels like a black hole to me, of just feeling like just awful in every possible way. And having long COVID as well, it just all of it piled up. But what I realized from that is that I am notoriously bad at taking care of myself. Like, I am 36 years old. I am a fully grown woman. And when I came on this book tour, my husband felt the need to say, "Don't forget to eat." He said, "Make sure you eat real meals, because you cannot just nibble random things that are in your bag." And he's not wrong. I am bad at taking care of myself, but what I've learned is that I need to do a better job, and I still need to do a better job than I'm doing now. But what I do try and do is spend I mean, it sounds very sort of obvious and sort of like the kind of that goes without saying, but I like to kind of spend time with people I love. That's the best way I know to take care of myself, because sometimes it's just being with my kids for a bit. I mean, obviously I'm with my kids a lot, but I mean like being with them properly, no screens, no taking them somewhere, going to get ice cream by the beach, that kind of thing. Or meeting a friend, just having sometimes a publishing friend, and then we can bitch about publishing together. Um, and it's just about connecting with people again, because I think that's one of the things that doing this job, writing, it's a thing that very easily gets neglected. We don't see people in the office day in and day out. We don't
Except
talk
the ones in our head.
except the ones in our head. We don't talk to real people very much. And I think that human connection is a huge part of taking care of myself anyway, that I have gotten better at. And that has helped a lot. Yeah. But thank you for asking. That was really nice.
Yeah, I agree. This job can be super isolating, especially when you're in the middle of a heavy draft period and you can slip into like, we were talking about this earlier, not wanting to lose your creative mindset.
Hyper focus kind
And
of.
so
Yeah.
you sort of force yourself to be like, I cannot be distracted. Like, I'm not gonna think, look, breathe. I'm gonna nibble and stuff out of my bag because you're afraid of losing it's not necessarily the flow or like the story. You're just afraid of losing whatever's keeping you going.
Yeah.
And if you stop for too long, I find it's almost impossible to get back to where you were. And then you give yourself all these weird tricks to sort of trick yourself back into it. But yes, very much so reaching out to other people. I have 2 very small children. So I find lately in such a shitty, horrendous, disgusting world, it can be scary knowing you have 2 small kids and raising them in a world that looks like this, but it also can be very hopeful when they say things that are magical and special, and only a young, unburdened child who hasn't experienced disappointment yet, only they can have that perspective. So it's a magical thing about having small kids. They can reshift your perspective into appreciating things. And so for me, when I'm too deep into my own head and miseries, a 5-minute conversation with my daughter about boogers, well, it's not very
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, much the same. Yeah.
Boogers.
Unicorns. Yeah. Lots of.
Yeah, my daughter asked me if narwhals were real, so we got to.
You know what? My 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 dad asked me. He said, "Hang on a minute. You mean these things? These dolphin-looking things with unicorn horns? They're actually real?" I was like, "Yeah, I know. It's amazing, isn't it?"
We should put my daughter and him in touch.
I know. He was just, his mind was blown. He adored. But then let me tell you, this is also the same man who went to see Hadestown, and I think might possibly, and I feel like I should like add a caveat that he is an extremely highly educated, well-read man. And yet he went to see Hadestown and was possibly the only person in the entire audience who thought it was a plot twist when she looked back. Or when he looked back. But yeah. I don't think somehow Orpheus and Eurydice here just gone past his head. So yeah, narwhals. Fascinated.
Who knew?
Yeah. He's 73. Like he's not, he's my
I really think him and my daughter should be in touch.
They should. They should.
They
Yeah.
have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Oh, right over there. Are there any character traits from the people you love that you have inserted in the characters you write?
Yeah. I think, oh, he's going to hate that I'm saying this, but some of the loveliest, nicest parts of my male love interests, I do sort of steal liberally from my husband. He will hate it so much that I've said this in public out loud. He's very shy. He like, I think like a lot of the nicest men, doesn't think very highly of himself. It's weird how that works out, isn't it? The ones who think highly of themselves never tend to be that nice. Anyway, so so I do steal a lot of like those really those aspects of the characters from him. Sometimes I steal things from sort of loved ones who I've either lost or like Jasmine in this book, in Sarah's Great Aunt, is very loosely based on a much loved great aunt of mine who isn't with us anymore, but she had a long, wonderful life. And so I do sometimes do that, and sometimes it's my way of kind of honoring them, even if they, a fictional character will never really match up to the real person. But I will say that sometimes what I find more fun is stealing aspects of character from people I don't like, people I actively loathe, in fact. Yeah, and yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's mean. It's petty. It's fun. They don't know it's them.
Yeah, usually they're like, oh, what a terrible
Possibly
character.
be me. Yeah.
One last question. Who will it be? All the way in the back there. Yes. That was you. Who was it? Okay, right over there.
Hi.
Hi.
Mhm.
Like wonderful, beautiful feeling of being a woman of color, being a diverse person without, hitting you over the head with all of that. It's a lot of
times when you see a diverse character on the page, they're diverse
Mhm.
in your face. I feel like you've done it in a way that was both intentional, but also like, as you said, casual. That process.
I'll do my best.
Can you, I'm going to repeat the
yeah,
question.
yeah,
Can you
you-
speak to the process of creating something you just described as casual diversity?
It's it's tricky because I think I can't speak to indie publishing and self-publishing, but when you're traditionally published, it is quite hard to do the casual diversity of, I mean, in spite of the fact that it is our everyday lives, like literally the world is just casually diverse. Publishers often want a selling point. They want it to feel like there is a purpose to this person being this identity. And we are finally moving away from that, I think, I hope, because we don't need a reason to be who we are. And for me, it's all about writing the person, whoever the character might be, as authentically as I can, while also being mindful of their identity as a minority, whatever that minority might be, while also that not being everything about them, because it isn't. That's not everything we are. And again, much like the multi-generation thing, it's just about reflecting the world I live in and the people I love and know, and the fact that they are different, and sort of trying to, not obviously not try to like pluck them and put them into a book and say, oh, this is, represent based on you, but more like take inspiration from people I know and love in terms of who they are and how they navigate their identities without, I hope, ever sort of co-opting their voices or their stories. And it is a tricky process, and it's a lot and a lot of it is about what the industry as a whole will let you do. Because like you said, yeah, a lot of the time a diverse character is there to sort of whack you over the head with, oh, look, they are this. And sometimes, I don't know, it's about pushing through anyway and saying, no, I don't need a reason to create this character, and no, I don't need to explain why this person exists in my book. They just do. Some of us, it took me a long time to do that, for what it's worth. Like, I couldn't get away with it for a very long time. And then you just need, I think, again, the right people around you to support you and push you onward. Yeah. It's a tricky question. I don't know that I answered it particularly well. Yeah.
I think you did.
Thank you. Was that
We got a
that was the
thumbs
last
up.
one? Oh, that's the last one.
Here.
Yay!
All right, let's do one last round of applause for our authors as we say goodbye to them for a moment. All right, just a few quick logistical things. First of all, thank you to our virtual audience for joining. So great to have you, and goodbye.